Hello, everyone. Here's to today's Monday motivation from last week's podcast. Our weekly roundup involves dealing with being upset once you're self-empowered, once you're a self-empowered individual, using silence to grow, transforming moments of sadness, what self-awareness is like with self-empowerment, moving beyond stereotypes in a way that leads to self-empowerment for all, giving to yourself and others equally, and finally, yesterday, being proactive versus reactive or passive. These are the topics in case anybody wants to tune in, that way you know them, but our main three takeaways are: when you're self-empowered, all the things you deal with are dealt with from a place of flow, neutrality, and unconditional love. You have no insecurities, and therefore you do not react defensively, aggressively, and or with any other of those feelings, which is not about the feeling as much as it's your nervous system's response, that defense mechanism that we discuss extensively in every episode for the purpose of helping you to create that connection of the body element. Those who are in a self-empowered state know this feeling of flow as they interact with others, and they find those sweet spots always of how to share with the external something in a way that allows mediation to be more of the feeling versus, again, egos battling each other. So those are for the 3D, 4D communities that continue to lead with an ego mind and or spiritual ego. We get to gain awareness of those of ourselves. And again, you empower by choosing, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be, and this is how I relate. And it does not involve being aggressive towards other human beings. It's the opposite. Otherwise, again, empowerment is not force of power. It's very important to differentiate. But the most amazing part is that aspect of not being afraid in the same way that an ego self that remains in that 3D, 4D state does. So it's not that it eliminates, because we'll always have fear as conscious beings. However, you know that the only true fear is a physical threat, and that your body will always protect you, meaning you'll run or you'll fight. Other than that, every other interaction with life or humanity is something that from your cosmic consciousness you evaluate in the secondary and primary consciousness. That following your heart is where you're choosing to be love to you, to others. So self-empowerment is key. That's what we discuss about, and I give you many examples. So tune in back. But in the meantime, let's say you don't want to tune in, trust your feelings in that they will guide you to flow. So when you get upset, tend to the ego self and empower it by allowing you to be you. But this doesn't mean imposing on others. In fact, it's quite different than that. Which leads me to giving to yourself and others equally. Very, very important, because most people will put either themselves behind or the opposite. Equal give is where you tend to the emotional needs of your ego, and you respond when you notice that there's something you would want by tending to the needs versus staying in a place of judgment and or negativity or interacting with the external. When it comes to others, you get to learn how to say, look, this is working, this is not working, to share the feelings in the best way possible so that you don't hurt somebody's feelings, but that you can also respect the person you are. A very, very amazing aspect. And again, with self-empowerment, it gets easier and easier until that moment, though. Thanks to inner growth, every interaction that makes you think about an equal give for your person, you're never going to take. You don't want to take. When you want to take, that's where you go in and say, okay, what is the ego self of me wanting? And while others will talk about continuous exchanges, again, we're talking about achieving self-empowerment. So you being able to lead life from within, to tend to the emotional and mental aspects. And the external, yes, you engage with it always, particularly information, experts, other individuals who teach and guide on topics. You can't learn about stuff without other subject matter experts. But the self-empowered individual is using that to add to their knowledge of them. Very different. We talk about that too. So giving to yourself and others equally is always with unconditional love and neutrality. and you're doing the work, meaning you're the one who has your ego and awareness, and you're saying, okay, I can tend to this, and whoever's engaging with me, if they're in a place of vulnerability, you know that, and you simply choose proactively with love and to the best of your ability what you're going to do. Now, again, there's nothing, the physical aspects are not involved in these topics. Any physically endangering situation, you should immediately remove yourself from the situation. And there are plenty of people out there that have roles to protect us. So physically speaking, nobody should be in any kind of danger ever. But just to be clear, those are never what we are talking about. We're not talking about physical altercations. So we're talking about emotions, thought processes, and expanding those areas. Now, the last one, being proactive versus reactive or passive, we discussed all in neutrality so that you could begin to see how essentially it's not about reactive or passive. It's the emotional layer that through your awareness in the state of consciousness of you, you get to make proactive choices. And with the body element, you get to understand why are you more reactive or passive, and then you get to also choose, okay, what am I going to try out to be what I want? What is my perfect blend? This is, in fact, today we're going to be talking about passive and how if one is inclined to that, it isn't about negating it. It's actually about embracing it. And that is what then gets you to be your natural tendency of how you are, and proactive, because you stop refusing that you are in the inclination of perceiving perhaps life in that way. So tune in later. If you guys haven't ever tuned into the podcast, it isn't live yet, so you'll get that opportunity. But in the meantime, hopefully these 3 key takeaways help you throughout the week, and I'll see you again back next week.